Hey everyone, I'm Melanie of Art Studio 320. Welcome if you haven't been here before, and welcome back if you have. If you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment to just push that red button. You'll be helping me out. And if you want to be notified when I drop a new video, just ring that bell. Also, I am on Instagram, so you can follow me there at Art Studio 320. Today's video is about two bar stools. Two bar stools I believe were well loved based on what they look like. They were a challenge because they had a lot of scratches and dents, and I kept finding them throughout the process of refinishing them. But I think I got them all. And I also did a new staining technique that I learned from my friend Karen at Designs by Karen. And you can find her on Instagram and on Facebook. I will put the links in the description box below, along with all of the materials that I used today and links to them where you can go to purchase them. If you want to find out how these bar stools turn out, just stick around. This week on the bar stools, I'm using Simple Green. It's really good for grease and some odd smells and some food that I found on the chairs. After I'm all done cleaning the bar stools, I get out my trusty plastic wood and make some repairs on the seat of the chair. And here's my cool brand new container of Plastic X. I'm sanding off the wood filler with 60 grit and then using my sander, my Bosch sander. Here I'm trying to pull out these little pegs that cover up the screws. These pieces on the side of the chair I wanted to come off, and they were a real bite to get off. I ended up splitting the pegs in half and pulling them out. I decided to sand the back of the chair and the seat of the chair to add interest to the piece and show some of that beautiful wood. I actually had a couple repairs on these two little pieces I took off the stool, so I had to put some wood filler on them. Oops. Then I put 240 grit on here and got the wood nice and smooth. And here I'm just sanding some more of the wood filler. Guys, good morning. Yesterday I had a couple spots that were catching on my tack cloth, so I knew that there were pieces of wood that were not quite smooth. And every time I sanded them, it just didn't help. So what I did was I put wood filler on them and then sanded it down and covered up that spot where the wood was just snagged. It'll keep it from causing a scratch or something on somebody. So it's a good little fix. Just using some Simple Green just to clean up some of the dust. And I cleaned off the footrest, which was kind of a brass color, but that wasn't going to work. This isn't going to go with the color I chose. This, I think, will look really cool. Kind of industrial, but classy. That's how I look at it. Anyway, I'm going to put probably 3 coats. I want it, because people's feet are going to be on it, I want it to be nice and solid. I spray painted this outside, and I did it probably 3 times to get a nice coat. I just thought I'd give you a quick update. I really thought I could have painted last night, but these little scratches and gouges keep appearing. It's like they're multiplying. So as I see them, I'm repairing them. I've put some more wood filler on a few more spots, and I think I've got them all. So I'm planning on painting this afternoon. It's very windy. I'm going to have to stay in the garage even though it's going to be 76 degrees today. Yay! It's not quite there yet, obviously. I still have my grungy sweatshirt on. I am working on the other stool as well, but I figured you don't need to see double. I'm going to show you one, and then at the end, of course, I'll show you both. I am going to keep working. That's it. There were a lot of spots on this piece that the wood that I was staining and the wood I was painting connected, so I'm just taping it off with some painter's tape. Here is my color soapstone, which is a gray, beautiful color. This is the first time I'm using the Fusion mineral paint, and I really like it. I'm definitely going to be using it again. I put on 2 coats and it went on so nicely. See this right here? That's paint, and it spilled over from the front when I was painting, and I didn't catch it. And that's not the only spot it happened. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let it dry completely. It feels dry to the touch, but and sand it down real carefully. And perhaps because it's a second coat, I won't have to paint it again. But if I do, I do. And because I'm painting a second chair, perhaps I will have learned. When I knew the paint was dry, I used a 60 grit sand block and then a 220 to just smooth out that edge. There were a lot of little spots I had to just go back and touch up, so I just used a little artist brush. I'm using 3 different stains on these little pieces for the sides of the chair: the custom gray and espresso and general finishes Java. I mix them together. I put on the espresso first, which I was going to do on the seat of the chair, and then I added some of the custom gray, and then I put the Java over the top of that. I don't show it here, I add it later, because there wasn't enough of a contrast between the custom gray and the color paint I was using. I'm using a clear wax to darken the color of the paint and also to protect it. But on the seat and the back of the chair, I will be using Dixie Belle's Gator hide for extra protection. Now it's time to try the new technique I learned from Karen at Designs by Karen. I'm using an espresso to cover the whole seat and the back first before I do anything else. Now, my technique is a little different than Karen's, and you should definitely watch her videos on Instagram. This is my custom gray that I made, and I got this idea from Karen. I mixed together a white and a black stain. They're both stains, and they're semi-transparent. The gray turned out a little bit more opaque, which actually looked pretty cool. So I'm really liking this. And what I'm doing is I'm just going in a straight line, just pulling that color down. So I'm actually making stripes. And I do this with each line. I used a stick to just kind of dribble on the custom gray. And then I came back and pulled it down. Now I'm kind of using my own technique here. I watched Karen's videos and then I adapted it to what I wanted to do for this chair. I am going to try it the way she did it too. But you can do it however you want. Now I'm adding General Finishes Java color, so it's a lot darker. And I'm just adding a smaller stripe right next to the gray. And I'm using, again, a little popsicle stick just to drag it across there. And then I'm just pulling the color down. And I do this a few times. So really, you just do it until
you get it the way you want it. There's no right or wrong way to do this. It just depends on what kind of look you're going for. Just think of the possibilities. I know I have. I can't wait to use this again. Now I'm going to do the back of the chair, and again I'm going to use the Espresso first. You notice I taped off the chair, but I discovered just by accidentally hitting the chair with the stain, I actually spilled it. It wiped right off with wax. I had already waxed the chair, and then I used a little bit more wax and it wiped right off. So that's a good little tip in case you accidentally spill stain on the rest of your piece where you don't want it. So I've got the Espresso on the back of the chair now, and now I'm going to add little stripes. And here I'm doing a little bit different because I don't want it to drip. So I just took the paper towel and I dipped it in the stain and just dragged it across. The other thing that the tape kind of hindered me from doing is getting to the very edge. And I end up going back later and fixing that. Now I'm going to add the Java underneath the gray. And there's only 2 stripes of gray, so I'm just using 2 stripes of Java. And I'm just wiping it back off. Once you have the color the way you want it, then you're done. I discovered a little chip off the leg, so I had to stop everything, fill it with wood filler, sand it down so I could paint it again. I had to sand off some of that wax, otherwise the paint wouldn't have stuck very well.
I took my mic off, sorry about that, but I put some Driftwood over my custom gray just to see what it would look like, just, you know. Well, it deepens it. Maybe, you know what, I think I'm just going to put it over the whole thing and see what happens.
Here is my custom gray looking like it's separated, so I needed to stir that up. And I'm using the Espresso again. And I'm just adding a little bit to the edges because like I said, it was taped and it was blocking some of the wood, so I needed to go back and touch it up. So I'm just using a little cheapy paintbrush to do that. After I did some touch-ups on the back of the chair, I decided to just darken the colors on the whole seat too. And it ended up looking really nice. I love how this technique turned out. A couple spots that needed a little extra stain, so I added it and then dabbed it instead of wiping it off. I'm painting the second stool, and I'm just going to show you. Let's see. Okay, we'll go over here. Do you see right here? All right. One of the problems I had with the other stool was that I was getting a lot of drips. And what I mean is, not really drips, but I'd paint this side, and then on this side there would be a big thick line. And then I'd have to go back and sand it, and ugh, big pain. So what I'm doing this time is I'm limiting how much paint I have on my brush. I'm doing this. So I'm kind of going around the corner, and I'm doing it fast. So it's not, because when you do long strokes like that, it tends to leave a trail behind it. That's a fast drying paint, which this is. That can be trouble, because you go back to fix it and you can't, because it's already drying, it's already setting up. So by doing it this way, look, no drippy drips, no little lines. It's crazy. The other thing I wanted to tell you, you can get kind of lost where, especially the second coat, where you've painted and where you haven't, because it dries so fast. So what I'm doing this time is I started with it flipped over the front side down, and now I'm just rotating it. So I'm just concentrating on here and here. I'm just painting where I can reach and what I can see. And then I turn it, and then same thing. I paint what I can see and what I can reach. It just gives you a better feel for where you are. So I've done 3 rotations. So I'm going to flip it again after I finish this part and this part and this part and this. You just kind of have to have a system. Remember where you start so that when you rotate, you'll know when you're finished, because it'll all be done. All right, little tip for today. See ya. I'm ready to use the Dixie Belle's Gator hide. I've read the directions. I'm going to do it exactly how it tells me. It suggests you use a paper plate and a disposable stick to stir. So my guess is I'm disposing of everything I use here except my sponge. I sprayed a little bit of water on my sponge because I watched that in many videos. They suggest you do that. And I opened up the Gator hide. It had a seal on it. And I'm just going to pour some onto my plate. And right on there. I've got my sponge. Now it says 2 to 3 thin coats, allowing 2 hours dry time between each coat. And I also have watched videos where you shouldn't be going over it and over it. So put it on and leave it. And don't get it too thick. I need to, oh dear. All right.
surface there. And that's the back side. I'm leaning it up against something. It's pretty well covered.
Making your sponge a little bit damp was a good idea. It really made the gator hide go on nice and easy. It wasn't hard at all. And I put 2 coats on and plan on putting 1 more, but it worked really well and I love the finish. Just remember you don't want to futz with it too much. Once you put it down, you can wipe it a little bit, but it was drying pretty quick. You know, I've seen so many videos about gator hide and I was really nervous about using it, but it was so easy to use. Just follow the directions and it wasn't complicated, and look how beautiful my piece looks. Yay! You know you're getting to the end when you start putting back on the hardware. I'm just screwing everything in and putting the little plugs in. And of course you can't forget the footrest that I spray painted. It looked really nice.
Well, that's the video for this week. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I hope that you will try the new staining technique and put your own little twist on it. If you liked today's video, make sure that you give me the thumbs up. I always like that. And leave a comment below, and if you have any questions, also leave those in the comments below and I will be sure to answer you. Thank you for being here. See you next time.